Hey everyone, cheers! Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
Welcome to
Creative Happy Hour,
where we get drunk
on the creative possibilities.
Oh yes, we do every week with our creative bitches.
Yay!
Yes, today we are drinking sloe gin fizzes. I was gonna make slow screws, but then I was like, no, we're gonna have like a sex episode.
Yeah,
we're
totally. Like
the
sexy
slow,
creativity.
Yeah, we're gonna do the slow screw then, and we have all this slow gin. So we made a slow gin fizz, and why did we make that? Because we're talking about the slow movement. Slow creativity, slow food, the value of slowing down to speed up your creativity.
Yeah, slow fashion,
slow
clothing.
economies, slow cities. There's a ton of slow shit, and we're going to talk about it while sipping this slowly
sipping this slow gin fizz.
Exactly. Welcome. We're going to taste this, and here we go. Okay, cheers again.
Cheers.
Oh, and this little bitch just joined us.
Oh, yummy. That's like a slushy.
That's really nice. I really look at her. She's scratching at us. See, you like this dog. Yeah.
Hello. What? Seriously?
I know. She's like, I would like some too. I never get to taste it. So we made this. How did we make this? I will tell you all. So I got some. I wanted to get. So this is my day. My day was too fast, so I kind of effed it up. I got some Hayman's of London. Can't see it. Sloe gin. Slow, not S-L-O-W. Sloe, S-L-O-E. Apparently, the sloe berry is a kind of berry that grows in England almost only.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they harvest them by hand slowly, and they make this delightful gin. But the sloe gin had a really bad name to it because it used to be a little bit too sweet. It was kind of like Bartles and Jamesy.
Yeah.
But this is really delightful.
It's nice. It's
right?
nice. It's not like doing a Jello shot.
It's not. It's really good. And so there's a company in Sonoma County, in Sebastopol, that's actually at that Barlow, that industrial complex. They make sloe gin. They're the only ones in the U.S. that make it.
Oh.
And I was like, I want to get some of that. But I called all over the place and everybody had run out. And I was like, I'm not driving So in my slow thing, I'm not going to go rushing over to some crazy, slow down already. So I was like, I'll get the English one, which is the original.
Yeah. I mean,
done.
You just kind of go back to the roots.
Back to my roots. I was like, my roots of laziness. I was like, I was doing too much, right? And so I did that. So I added some lemon to it. I squeezed some lemons. And
That's
then,
delicious.
Isn't it yummy? And then I put a slice of orange and I just kind of shook the sloe gin, 2 parts of that to 1 part lemon, and then mixed it up and poured it over crushed ice and added some sparkling water, soda water.
Lovely water.
Easy, fizzy, light, nice. I like it. I'm good.
Cheers.
So cheers again. And so speaking of slow things, we've been trying to enjoy some slow creativity. You enjoyed a fun creative event last night.
Oh, yeah. I did. I went to Hamilton. And I would say theater definitely falls into the genre.
It really does.
Of the slow movement, because theater is what we used to do before we had the super fast internet.
Totally. Like it brings you back to the roots, to community, to gathering with actual real people, the spoken word, things that are not all teched out to the hilt.
Yeah. And the old theater was in the Orpheum Theater.
So nice.
Gorgeous theater in San Francisco.
So phenomenal.
And I mean, just the I don't even know what it's called, and the centerpiece on the ceiling. I mean, it was just so gorgeous. But
so Hamilton lived up to the hype. It's a must.
I mean, you have to see Hamilton. It's actually
it's like I'm not allowed not to see it.
It's your creative homework. You have to do it. It was so fantastic.
So nice. I mean, it's so funny because somebody else was telling me they'd gone to see Hamilton recently.
Yeah, how do I say his name?
Lin-Manuel
Miranda. I always fuck his name up. Poor thing.
He actually went to one of the schools that my son is applying to, which is really funny. So we're in the middle of that. So speaking of slow, my son has slowed down applying to college to a glacial pace, which is lovely. I think in a world where everybody's applying early and they're making early decisions and they're moving faster and faster, this fucker has decided to slow it the hell down.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think this whole early admission thing is a little desperate.
It is a little so that's one of the things, is that one of the big slow movement things, but before we circle back to the history of the slow movement, the kids' education is one of those things that's getting really, really hurt by this acceleration.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I feel that when we go through acceleration, it completely resets all of your vital functions to like a survival mode freak out, and that cuts down on your creativity. And so I think that it's really a shame that the kids these days are learning theories and they're learning accelerated all the time. And there's no, like, nobody's in a hurry. I don't understand why in this country it's like, oh my God, you need to do the accelerated track. You need to be learning fast.
Yeah, you need to be doing AP classes so that you can get college credits while you're in high school. It's like,
which I think is nuts.
Oh, forget it.
Right? I mean, like, go back to the thing like they do in Finland where they start school at, like, what, 7? And guess what? The Finns are fucking happy, even though it's ice cold in their country. Maybe it has something to do with vodka or something like that. But still, they're well-adjusted people.
Right.
You know, like in Scandinavia, like people, you know, the kids don't start learning to read until they're a certain age. Like they're just socialized. They're having fun. They're playing. They're being creative.
They're learning how to be in a community.
They're learning how to be freaking people who aren't monsters, right? And I mean, even naming the kids.
They're getting more sleep, which if you watch the sleep episode.
That was the thing that I was thinking of. Yes, exactly.
You'll learn that, like, you know, slow down and get more sleep.
Slow down, yeah, because you end up kind of deformed in the way you look at life. You know, it's a real, it's very serious. Like, we're not just saying that slowing down is optional. We're saying that it's probably something that we should all be doing. And, you know, for many reasons, and we'll go over all of those. But, like, even in Scandinavia, they wait for quite a bit of time before they name a child after they're born. And I thought that was kind of a really amazing thing, because we just jump into, you know, the revealing the sex of the baby, revealing the name of the baby.
Oh, we want to find out everything.
Right when we can, like, early. It's just kind of, it's too much. And also deciding what kind of career you want to do too early. I think that's really harmful as well. It's just kind of crazy, like getting on this track where it's like you have to decide everything. This the antithesis of creativity.
It really is. It really is.
I think I might drink like 3 of these. By the
way, I'm guzzling.
Speaking of slow, it's like, I should drink this a little more slowly.
You might want to call this fast gin.
Right? So the name of the slow movement. So this is actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not, they came up with a little acronym type thing for slow. So the slow movement, the slow food movement in particular, was actually a direct reaction to a McDonald's being set up in Rome in 1989 or something. Don't quote me on the date, but it was something around that time.
Oh, wow.
So this Italian dude, Carlo Petrini, he was totally against the fact that McDonald's was opening on the Piazza Navona in 1986 in Rome.
It is super gross.
It's really gross. Like when you're in Rome, I mean, I remember when I was traveling and I went to the McDonald's in where was it?
I went to the one in Nice.
I went to the one in not Herculaneum, the other one where the volcano, Jesus Christ.
Vesuvius?
Yeah, what's the town next to Vesuvius?
Not Mount St. Helena.
Not Herculaneum, the other one. The one that was...
Pompeii.
Pompeii, thank you. The Pompeii McDonald's. There's actually a Pompeii McDonald's, and they have like faux architectural shit.
That is effed up.
Right? I know. It's really horrible.
That is really
It's like
obnoxious.
This archaeological dig-themed McDonald's. I was like, you guys are really bad. I know. It's so bad. But yeah, so this guy, Carlo Petrini, he was protesting, and so he kind of brought back the whole thing. Oh, and it wasn't, and I was wrong, it wasn't Piazza Navona, it was Piazza di Spagna. Whatever, like you guys would have known. Like, how many comments would we get with somebody saying, because people watch us too quickly, they're not paying attention. They don't care, right?
They want the meat of the story. They don't care about their creatives.
They just want to like fast forward.
They want the gist.
But that's what we're telling creatives, is that you have to slow down and get those little, you know, details, because
nooks and crannies,
right? Nooks and crannies, like the popcorn. You can really open your imagination to so much more when you open up that. So slow, they said that it stands for, so the S is for sustainable, right? Because that's what happens when you accelerate production of things. Like the earth cannot replenish the resources. So it's, you know, that acceleration is really bad for everything. And even for you, if you're trying to do new things all the time, like you're not renewing or regenerating what you need. So it's kind of nutty. The L,
sustainable.
The L is for local. which I think is awesome because, you know, that also is better for the planet, but it's also better for like being part of a community.
It is.
You know, and I like the local thing, not only for the food, but for artists, for example. I love supporting local artists and going to local art events or local musical events. I mean, all of that is just amazing. And the local, I mean, when they say local flavor, I mean, there's a real advantage. Okay, yes, this dog is craving attention. She wants to be in the middle of us, whatever. So there is such a thing to local. Like, I think that embracing that is major, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I feel like there is, I mean, I'm involved somewhat in the slow clothing movement because I'm a fiber artist.
I was wondering if you were going to wear one of your things today.
I was going to.
I wear a piece of jewelry from a local artist.
Well, I did bring, I should get it, I did bring some wool that is from Windrush Farm.
Oh, yes, we're gonna do
a crocheting with it today.
Field trip, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've done all the fiber classes. In Petaluma, which is about 30 miles. It's still considered local.
50 miles
radius
is local.
So yeah, Farmer Mimi,
we love her.
Lieberman, she has an active farm in Petaluma, California, and she has sheep which get sheared every season. Processes the
seasonal
wool.
Is such a nice thing. That's a natural process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the wool, you know, it's seasonal, and then it gets,
nice.
you know, the fleeces get soaked, they get cleaned, they get, you know, sheared. There's a whole process.
There's a whole process, and respecting that process and having to go through the process with no shortcuts is a really great thing. I'm sure that she comes up with new creative ideas.
Gets carded.
All of those steps. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fibers, you know, then they use a spinning wheel,
which is amazing. I mean, as opposed to like the factory made thing where you lose the connection to the materials. Yeah. And I think that I've always you
lose all of those like idiosyncratic.
Yes.
You know, how the fibers act,
right?
And how like air gets into the fiber, and how, you know, and then you spin them in different directions, and you know, there's you ply the yarn, all these different things. And you learn about that. But it's funny, when we had the power outage, I was like, oh, I should get my spinning wheel out. Because that's, you know, that was like high technology when you don't have power.
Right. It's so true. Yeah, we actually went through kind of a back to basics period when we lost power, and we missed an episode, if any of you actually noticed that, because we didn't have the electricity, but it was fun. We did record an episode in the dark.
Yeah, in the dark with candles. You'll
see that before you see this one. But I think I always fantasize about, like, I mean, first of all, the food ingredients. Like, I love kind of, you know, going and foraging things.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of preparing things the proper way. And sometimes you're like, I don't have time to do this. But sometimes it feels so good to do that and to find all those characteristics of that super local stuff. But I always fantasize about with, like, pigments for painting or whatever. Like, I would love to make my own pigments because I think that that's super fun. And then I have a friend who does stuff with clay, and she'll actually, you know, kind of add more water to her clay and this and that, and she'll, you know, to the ceramic to start really from the beginning. And I think that that's so cool because it's very, you know, it's super creative. So, okay, we did the S and the L. We're going very slowly on this whole thing, right? Guess what the O is for?
Oh, don't tell me.
Oh, don't tell me. Organic.
Of fucking course.
Of fucking course. Yeah, it stands for of fucking course. So it's organic. So,
I was going to say, like, optimistic.
Well, which I kind of think, I think it kind of is too, but organic is in the sense that things are not mass produced and that you know what the source is, and that
they kind of develop organically.
Yes, exactly.
Not like organic produce necessarily.
Right, it can be, but it could also be exactly that. It's not that it's developing organically with a new thought process or a process of doing things and really paying attention.
Right.
And then the W is for whole, which is, you know, not processed and complete. And I think that that's a really nice way of looking at things, because you can take kind of any artistic realm and you can apply this to it, you know. So
it's also good to go through this. So I went through all these spinning classes and all these fiber classes and natural dyeing. So, you know, you gather all of these
love that,
you know, marigold, and I mean there's all kinds of things that you can dye with naturally. But I went through the whole process because I came to the table as a knitter and a crocheter.
Right.
But I was making rugs, handmade rugs, and I really wanted to work with natural fibers and learn about natural fibers and in kind of the history of this process.
Totally.
And so one of the things that you learn when you go through any kind of slow movement process is the things that you do and don't like. I mean, it's really necessary, I think, for your creative development to kind of understand how things, not just, I think, like for me, learning how the fibers are actually produced and how it's carded and how the dyeing process.
Well, then you know the wools you like to work with and those that you don't like to work with.
You have a deeper understanding of your mediums, I guess. So you know more how things are going to behave. So it allows you to have a deeper connection to the materials.
I completely agree. And I think that when you're telling somebody about what you worked on, like there's more of a connection with the person who's going to be consuming your product, whatever it may be. When you've allowed it to develop really maturely and wholly and fully, I think that there's something to be said about that.
It deepens your eye too for the detail of color and texture and actual, is the material, is it a what's the word? Is it a real material or is it a synthetic?
Exactly.
And so it deepens your understanding of materials as an artist to go through the slow process. And that that's for clothing, that's for food, that's for anything you do.
Anything. And actually, so the interesting thing is people think that, okay, so when you're going through this process.
I'm not eating the popcorn slow.
No. And I'm not going to. I freaking love popcorn. Cannot help it. It's not Jiffy Bob. It's Slow Bob. So when you go through that process and when you examine everything, when you're using these full things, people think, oh, it's going to limit my creativity because I'm not kind of firing so quickly, and that's actually not true. So they actually did a really interesting experiment with people where they had a like still life type of composition. And so they asked people to look at the still life and then to draw the still life and to do it quickly or slowly or whatever they wanted to do. Then they asked a control group or the same group to look at somebody else's abstract drawing of the still life and try to copy that.
Oh.
And then after having copied that, and they had to take a really long time to copy it as exactly as possible, which is interesting because like that's kind of like looking at somebody's process and trying to copy that. Then they made them draw the still life again. And it was so much more unique and creative. They were judged independently by people who judged those drawings to be more creative because they had gone through that whole process. And I found that really interesting. I think that, looking at how people kind of went through that work, like that's very inspirational. I was going to bring up somebody that you like, Abraham Maslow. And he talks about peak experience and getting into that zone, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, Abraham Maslow, he has the pyramid of self-actualization.
Exactly.
And so you have to go through all these levels.
Right, you have to go through them.
You have to go through these levels of, you have your basic needs on the bottom of the pyramid, food, shelter, I guess, I don't know all
self-expression, community, I think community, belonging.
And I actually listened to a radio show recently where they went through, every evening they went through a different part of the pyramid, and they would apply it to.
I like that.
So you could, they would apply it to real life. I don't remember exactly. I think it was on KPFA or something like that. But, but I think once you get to the point where you're at the top of the pyramid and all your basic needs are met,
right?
Then you are able, have a supportive community. You have your, you have food, shelter, loved ones, whatever. Then you can actually get to the point where you can be more reflective and you can kind of expand your consciousness.
Right. You get into the zone, and then you can also go back and revisit what is the quality of those things that I have, and like how do I make that better and better and better so that my experience becomes more and more heightened and much more rich and deeper. And I think that that's amazing. So there's a really interesting thing. There's even now slow aging. And I think that that's a super interesting thing. So
I'm going for that.
Right? So I went to a Iyengar yoga class. today. And
where'd you go?
I went to the Yoga Center of Marin, I guess it's called. I don't know. It's Evelia. Her name is.
I don't know that one.
She's a disciple of Iyengar, and she studied with him for years and years and years. You know, way back in the day.
I love Iyengar. That's what I started with. That yoga is incredible.
And that for a lot of people who do this kind of crazy competitive fast yoga with the music and, you know, a bunch of sun salutations and all this shit. That's not
power yoga. I
was
super into that too. Like
crack.
But I injured myself doing that though.
There you go. So Iyengar,
I haven't done yoga since. Actually.
No, and Iyengar is kind of the opposite of that, where it's just these really slow movements, but really careful and doing it for the right reason and doing it with the right background.
Everything builds on. Yes. It's foundational.
It's foundational. It builds on itself, and also you end up like it kind of solves these issues that you get with the aging. And so I think that, you know, and it's not telling you like, hey, take a quick, you know, my daughter is getting disenchanted with medicine because she's like, everything, the solution is surgery or throwing medicine at people. And she's like, things like lifestyle.
But she could be a functional medicine doctor.
Exactly. So she hasn't looked at that yet, but I think that is something that she could look at. But with the yoga, for example, like that can lead to the slow aging, like to try to be like, I'm not going to stop the aging. I'm not going to go for the shortcuts of, you know, let me plastic surgery the shit out of myself or try to, you know, medicate myself. But you can slow that process down and really look at each thing and not go crazy. Be like, oh my God, I need to react to this second, you know?
Yeah, and you can also have a different perspective on, you know, I was having a conversation with a patient the other day and she was kind of telling me that, you know, she's really hard on herself about her age and that she's really resisting it and has had plastic surgery and was just really, it was really a painful experience with herself.
See, that's hard.
Psychologically,
that's really hard.
It's painful. But when you have a different narrative about aging, then it's more, you have more of an appreciation for, I mean, it's like, it's having like,
it's a process. It's like instead of having to fix every detail.
Yeah. It's like looking at wabi-sabi versus modern, you know, experience where, you know, things decay naturally over time and there's beauty in that decay, in that process.
Exactly. Like, yeah, seeing things as a process instead of seeing things as a result. And I think that that's what we were talking about with the education, where like everybody's seeing the results as opposed to seeing the foundational process of building upon things slowly and of building this experience and building a personality and building like the whole person. And I think that as creatives, we really we have to realize, and so many of my writers, like in my writing group, are like, oh, you know, what's the shortcut to doing this? And what's the formula to doing that? And how do I do this quickly? And I'm just like, you need to make all the mistakes and you need to go through the process and you need to go through the rejection and you need to go through the learning. It's like everything takes time. And, you know, nobody gets that. And it's human nature. Like we all think that we're going to do things and there's a figure that we literally think is going to take us half the time that it takes us to do any given thing. And that's even with rushing. You know what I mean? Like half the time we rush things because we underestimated the time that we need. So I think as creatives, like giving ourselves more time than we think we're going to need is really a gift. Yeah. You know, because it can be really crazy. So let's talk about all the different slow movements and we can kind of elaborate on what we mean. So I found slow education. What do we think? I mean, slow education, I think that people are starting to come around to it.
Well, I mean, there definitely Waldorf and Montessori have, you know, they have a lot of actual experience with, you know, I mean, I remember arguing a little bit with my boyfriend about, because his son was in a Waldorf program and I was like, why aren't you pressuring him to read? He should be reading, you know, and he was like, that's not the Waldorf approach. Right. You know? And they, you know, they believe in allowing children to, I guess, I don't know exactly what their program is, but but they don't read at the traditional time. Now, I mean, some of the kids probably naturally do.
Oh, some of the kids probably do.
I mean, my daughter was trying to read shampoo bottles and I, you know, I always read to her, so I thought she was interested in reading. But
some kids aren't wired that way. Like my daughter had a really hard time. She spoke really early, but she had a really hard time understanding that these letters combine to make these sounds. Like she just didn't get it. Whereas my son, who spoke really late, he figured out what reading was before he could even speak, basically. You
Yeah.
know, so it's different
interesting.
kids, and then it's kind of interesting. And I think like a lot of the homeschooled kids,
Yeah.
people will mock them because they're weird, but look at them, like a lot of them are so creative, and
Really
interesting,
successful
right?
kids. I mean,
They are. They're
Alex
weird.
had a homeschool child that did the shadow with her, and this girl was so. I mean, a lot of high school students that I talk to are
Mhm.
not very socially
Mm-hmm.
communicative. You know, they're awkward. They're
Mm-hmm.
you know. This girl was homeschooled, and you think, oh, she probably doesn't have the social skills that another kid would
They have different social skills, but they have social skills that I think that later on in life are much more.
I had the most lovely conversation. I couldn't, you know.
Well, that's because you're just like me. You're weird too, but it's fine. But it's fine. It's fine. But no. But I think that's the thing, that the high school kids are going to be like, oh, that kid's kind of weird. But high school kids aren't inherently creative or successful. Most of them. It's later on that those those things develop. Again, it takes time. Like, if you reach your peak in high school, you're screwed.
Well, I see these kids already. You know, like even getting like, you know, all the parts in the Nutcracker, and they're kind of peeking out in 8th grade, and you're like, ooh, you don't want to peek out in 8th grade.
You do not want to peek.
That's not a good idea.
And you don't even want to peek in high school. I mean, seriously, you want to peek late. You want to be the dork who all the people in your high school look back on and go, oh my god,
or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then people look back and go, wow, and that's because you were building it in the background, and I think it's so much better.
More slowly.
More slowly. So there is slow cinema. Yeah, slow cinema. Slow cinema does not count on any kind of special effects or anything else. It doesn't have like super loud music or any, less of the technology. Just like we were saying about Hamilton, that you went to the theater.
Fantastic.
It's more of a theatrical experience, and it's more focusing on emotions, but natural, but not over the top emotions. Not like this, like playing with your emotions, but like letting them develop naturally on screen. And more subdued, but so that, kind of that essential thing can come through. They're very art housey, but super interesting and something that's worth looking at, especially if you're a filmmaker or a budding filmmaker. You know, that might not be the kind of film that you want to make, but I really like, just like that exercise we were saying of copying the abstract drawing, like, why don't you try to emulate that and then see what you come up with on your end? And I think that's
like I
cool.
said, I mean, I've I've gone through the process of making the yarn from the actual fibers.
Well, that's what we're talking about now. We're talking slow fashion now.
And then spinning it, and then, making the yarn, and then making a garment out of the yarn. Right.
So that's slow fashion.
It is.
So we got that, and what's good about the slow fashion is that you can, the local side can be the yarns, it can be the designers, it can be the style of dress. I noticed that when I live on the East Coast sometimes, and where I live in Virginia is a completely different style of dressing, just because we have gotten so regional in that. It's so interesting. So I have like 2 different wardrobes, because we dress much more like English, country-ish, style, which seems really bizarre, but I think we're kind of following where it is that we live. And it's totally not, I mean, it's very rare for somebody to show up in something super fast fashion.
Or bohemian.
Or bohemian, yeah, nobody would do that. I mean, it's rare. Like, a couple of people might, but in general, either they're going to be kind of like European eccentric, or they're going to be total like hunt country English, like old style. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas here, kind of more everything goes. You can almost tell by looking at somebody if they're from Mill Valley versus, whatever.
San Anselmo.
San Anselmo, yeah. And then like in LA, you can totally tell if somebody's from Malibu or from West Hollywood or from the city. Like, that's kind of fun, and I kind of appreciate that.
They're different species.
It's different species. And New York City has that too. There's the tribes of New York, and that's really interesting, because when you see somebody from downtown, they're like a fish out of water. Uptown, and it kind of gets sad when you lose that whole geographic change and that whole cultural change in a city. That's when the city has kind of lost itself.
Right.
And that's a bummer. So there is even slow gaming.
Slow gaming?
Yeah. So, some of these video games that are focused more on building and on world building and on foundations and the experience, and they're more educational. So there was Minecraft. Which you said
my daughter was really into it, and I was kind of worried about it, because I was like, oh great,
like, it's a video game,
right?
Yeah,
but apparently you could play in these modes, and one of the modes that she would play in was calm creative.
Nice.
You play calm creative.
So there's no killing, dying.
So no one's shooting at you.
Yeah.
You're just building a house. You're designing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're, riding the little roller coaster through it.
Right. You're going through all the little, I mean, that's great. Like, I love that world building stuff.
Yeah.
It was really fun to me. I used to play SimCity all the time when I was a kid.
Oh, I never played that.
Oh, SimCity was insane. Before they had the Sims, like the Sims started Kardashianizing the SimCity. The SimCity was you'd have to build a whole city with you'd have to lay down your electrical grid. You'd have to lay down your utilities and everything else. And your city wouldn't thrive as much. And you have to put like a commercial zone and a residential zone. And your city wouldn't thrive as much if you didn't do it right. Like if you didn't do it within, it was really smart.
I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with now with PG&E.
Right. Seriously, fucking PG. Well,
they don't do it right.
PG&E is in disaster mode because then you could have like fires and you could have like you could do that.
I mean, that's basically
that's what we had.
Well, in that fiction book, The Overstory that I was reading, and it's really kind of a story about trees and it's kind of got a like environmental thing. But there's a video game maker in this like developer. He's a crippled guy, and I can't remember what happened to him. I feel like he was in an accident or anyway, he was kind of paralyzed. He was paraplegic, and he developed this really successful video game and with his dad, and anyway, it became world renowned, and then he wanted to turn it back into more of a slow video game and to basically teach people to trust and sustain nature. Like it was all about what you could do to build nature instead of being destructive like a lot of video games.
Seriously.
And all the guys that he was working with were like, oh my gosh, we're like one of the most successful video games. We have everybody buy it, so many followers. You're going to destroy us. And interesting. And so it was interesting because he was completely like something happened that he had some experience in nature that inspired him to want to create kind of this slow, sustainable nature video game.
That's so cool. Well, so that brings us to the next thing.
It's a fiction book. But...
Right, and that brings us to the next thing, which is slow gardening. And with slow gardening, I think that, again, even with gardening, we're still like, oh my God, what can I use to like kill weeds faster? What can I use so my stuff grows faster?
Right.
What can I use so that I extend the growing season on everything?
Right.
And that's not what it's about. And I think that if you do the slow gardening where you're learning exactly what I should grow where and how I should,
and what is more water efficient because
and like what I can do to protect my plants without having to put chemicals on them and how I can develop a fuller flavor with, all of that is super interesting. A lot of the winemakers are kind of doing that. And I think that a lot of the farms that we talk to, and again, we're going to do a farmer's market, a little field trip, literally field trip one of these days.
Because there's all this like small batch, small batch distilleries.
Yeah,
and
so interesting.
Things that you can't mass produce, and it inherently creates more value because there's only 10 of them or there's only 50 of them or whatever.
And that's the thing, again, with the slow creativity. It's like if you're developing things slowly, like don't forget to factor in, like we always talk about not being a starving artist, like factor in the time that it took you to do that whole process. Right. And I think that some people, you'll find somebody who's willing to pay for the process as well as the product. And
so I'm reading another book right now by Haruki Murakami. You haven't read Murakami. Or you have, but you didn't like.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love Murakami. I've read almost all of his books.
I need to revisit. It's going to be a revisiting thing.
So this is one of the most fantastic ones. It's called Killing the Commendador. And anyway, I'm not going to tell you everything that happens, but there's an artist, and he gets commissioned by this, he's a portrait artist, and he's really talented. He has this incredible memory, and what he does is he meets with people, and he doesn't generally want people to pose for him. He wants to meet with you, and he'll do a couple sketches while he's talking to you, but he really wants to kind of download who you are. And so he goes through this whole process of getting to know you to make your portrait.
Well, that's what so many portrait artists actually used to do. Now people do it off of a photo or something, and that's not.
Yeah, so
that's a shortcut.
And it's like you go through this whole process, and then he would describe, like, the more he would know about certain aspects of their personality, there would be a certain, like, light in their eyes, and he would describe all these details artistically.
Right. Yeah.
That what is it about a painting that draws you in? What is it about?
It's that spark.
You know,
There's something
alive in that, and the artist can either capture it or they can't. You know, it could be. I mean, like the Mona Lisa.
Right. If you don't give yourself the time to capture that,
right,
it's not going to happen.
Right.
And if you don't give yourself the time to actually judge what you've done, and I know a lot of artists will say this, where they're rushing through kind of editing out something that they've done, and they end up painting over something that was really brilliant, and they regret it because you cannot get it back.
No.
And that happens with writing as well. Like if you don't give yourself the time to edit kind of in a slow way, you can end up kind of destroying the charm of whatever you've written or destroying, you know, and it's easy to do. That slip up is easily done. And like dancing is the same way. Like you could wipe something out of a choreography all of a sudden to get from point A to point B more quickly.
Well, look at Hamilton. That product. I mean, that took him 7 years to write write that musical. I mean, 7 years. Not that long of a time.
No, but still.
A lot of people could, you know, I mean, people crank books out in 6 months.
People crank, well, now that you have Wattpad and all that stuff, people crank books out, or, you know, crappy books out in much less than that. Right. Tyler Perry cranks out a different TV episode every day, which Tyler Perry's a genius, but they're not, you know, award-winning anything. They're just entertainment. And I mean, I know that Tyler Perry, if he were to actually like give himself the time to really develop something, could do something absolutely incredible, because the guy is, you know, super, super smart. But anyway, there's also, so this is funny, slow science and technology.
Oh.
And so you think what? Because science is always accelerating and doing these quantum leaps, and tech is as well. Well, so many scientists, like look at Elon Musk, who's like, dudes, we're dead if we like keep accelerating technology without thinking about it and without being responsible.
Consequences. Yeah.
I mean, the consequences can be crazy. And then you look at people like Einstein or Darwin, who were these scientists, and they actually had these kind of side hobbies. And that's where we get into this slow multitasking.
Yeah.
So the slow multitasking is where you have something like multitasking, jumping between things, does not work. Like, no, you are cutting down on your time for everything, and you're freaking out, and you're getting, but slow multitasking does. So people like Twyla Tharp, I think, were big proponents of the slow. She actually would do a lot of things. Like she did, you know, her dance, and she did some books. She did all this stuff. But what she would do is she had these boxes in her office, and she would toss things like into each box. Oh, literally, like into these boxes, so that she could, and she didn't care that the boxes weren't pretty or anything. So that's another thing, I think, when you're going slow, like start to focus on what's important. Right. Gain more time by cutting out what's not important to you, so that you can slow down for everything else. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, slowing down is definitely, you know, sometimes I'm like, okay, I work a lot, and there's dishes in the sink, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to just put them in the sink. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a cup of tea with my daughter. I'm going to, you know, and you prioritize.
Sit with someone important, or sit with yourself.
Yeah, you prioritize these slow driven types of self-investing.
It is activities. It is investing in yourself. Like it absolutely. Like,
instead of like, oh my God, I got to get this done.
Totally.
There's a time and place for that. But I find myself doing that so much that I've consciously I'm trying to consciously say, you know what? No, we're not doing that right now. We're going to just skip all that, and we're going to go for a hike.
Oh, I so agree. Like I did that this morning.
Meander on the trail.
Totally. Like this morning, I knew I had a million things to do, and I knew that I had to do all these errands, all this crap. I'm like, no. I went and I did my slow Iyengar yoga, because I knew that I needed it. And then I was able to kind of rush through a million things. And then somebody actually added another task onto what I had to do. Oh, God. Which normally I probably would have freaked out. Yeah. But I think since I had that like centering
thing, you had that little time where you grounded yourself.
Yeah. Then I was like, fine, I can take this on. Right. And so I did that. And also I decided, you know, some of the stuff I just need to cut out. So this is the other funny thing, was I was working on a bunch of stuff. So then I started kind of multitasking, but finishing one thing, starting the next, finishing one thing. And then I was working in a friend's office space, because I was like, sometimes it's good to sit with somebody else who's sitting still and working on something, because that helps you. It's kind of, you know, and that's why I like working in an art studio.
It's like, that's what we're doing, right?
That's what we're doing. Yeah, that's the theme. Like, we're doing that. We're not going to talk about a million things. Like, we were quiet. Like, we ate at our desk. we worked, we, didn't chat or do anything else, play music. We didn't multitask.
Yeah, you and I would not be able to handle that.
No, I know. We'd be like, by the way. But we did this. And then at one point she's like, I need to go to a meeting. She's like, do you want to stay and keep working? Or, do you want to go? And at first I was like, I'm going to stay and keep working. But then I was like, no, because I was kind of at a spot where I was stuck and I was like, I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to start spiraling, and then I'm going to start multitasking on things that's not going to help.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be late to do the other stuff that I need to do. So then I'm going to F up the drink that we're making. I'm going to F up everything else. Setting up, right?
Obviously,
right?
really good.
Pretty damn tasty.
Sucked it down.
Right? So I was like, I don't want to miss all the other stuff. So I had to stop doing that one thing. So like giving yourself that slow time and being like quality.
Yeah.
And then knowing when you have to stop because the quality's not there anymore.
Right. Yeah,
I think it's kind of major. So that's always good. There's another thing, slow travel.
Oh.
And slow travel's amazing because, kids are always like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's like always getting to a destination.
Yeah, not get destination oriented.
No, not destination oriented. Again, like it's the process of getting there. It's the process of getting to know a place. It's the process of like, hey, let's go try the food. Let's go try, walk somewhere. I mean, all of that is kind of amazing. And I think that that's a super interesting way and kind of a more responsible way of experiencing stuff. And I think that, again, you get back to where your creativity can start to really focus. Because, I mean, if you're just going to the same place as everybody else, getting there super fast and you're there and it's result oriented, how could you possibly have any kind of a creative discourse on it? Like, I think it's impossible.
I think so too.
It's kind of crazy. So there's that. So there's a whole idea. And actually, even a lot of businesses are saying that if you slow down the processes, it actually ends up that you get to the goal, a creative goal, much faster. So that's kind of like people kind of spin out of control when they think they're going fast.
Right.
They're just zzz, and they actually end up not getting to a good result.
Well, last night we were at dinner before we went to Hamilton, and the whole point was to like go and enjoy. I went with my friend, my longtime friend Andrea, and the whole point was to like enjoy each other, be with each other, go to the theater, and we were meeting at 5. The show wasn't until 7. We were meeting in a place 6 minutes from the theater, and at one point, like our food was taking forever, and he was starting to get frazzled and upset because we had to be at the theater, and I just said, I was like, just chill. Time will slow down for us. We're in the zone here. We're going to the theater.
You're in the zone.
And I was like, I'm not. This is not the kind of dinner that we're having. It was kind of like, and. Granted, yes, we had to ask the waiter, like, we're going to a show at 7. Can you please bring the check? Can we get this rolling? But don't get yourself into some kind of frantic.
Don't get your panties in a bind.
Yeah, just trust in.
Absolutely, and also, look, you guys had set yourselves up to be close to the theater.
Yeah,
like you had done everything right so that you could enjoy that time.
And when I said that to him, he was like, he checks the Uber driving, and he was like, oh, we're only 6 minutes from the theater.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And so I was like, okay, there you go.
That's a great thing to do, is to set things up so that you actually, again, we said eliminate the stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah. Or set it aside, or give yourself those shortcuts so that you can, have the time, and that you know that like this is your dedicated time to be, slowing down and creative. And I just think that that's amazing to get into that zone and be like, this is dedicated to that. I think that's really kind of special.
Well, it's an attitude and it's an approach to have towards something that you care about.
Totally.
And if you're creating something, whether it's a night out or a project or a painting or whatever it is, a company, having a certain type of approach and being aware of it is, it's fundamental.
I think the awareness, like people talk about awareness, right? They talk about being present. And I think that being present in the moment, and it's funny how present is a tense, right? It's time. Yeah. And being present and slowing things down and really savoring each one of those elements, like that helps immensely, right? Also unplugging, like people say, oh, unplug. She just looked at her. I love that.
I have to pick up my daughter at 7.
Yes. But they say unplug. And unplugging is one of those pieces of advice that's so hard for us to do these days.
Unless PG&E turns everything off.
Unless they turn everything off, but the funny thing is when PG&E did that, it's hard to get yourself into the zone where you're like, this is fine.
It's forced,
It's forced. It sucks. Whereas I think that if you were to go to a retreat where it's like a silent retreat where everything's unplugged on purpose, then you've prepared yourself and you're like, that's fine. I think that I would really freak out if I knew I'd freak out. Like when PG&E is like, surprise.
Surprise.
You can't call anyone and you can't then you're like, oh shit.
You're going to the dark ages for 5 days.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
It's
enjoy.
5-day,
be present, fuckers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not super. Like, I think that that's less than optimal.
Yeah.
It's like when we talk about, when the resources, like if you plan on using less resources and you plan on being more economical and on saving, that's one thing. But if all of a sudden you lose all your resources and you lose all that's not
but I
the
still
same.
think you have to, and these are conversations that I was having with my daughter. I was like, okay, so the power is out. We have no internet. We have no, you can't watch endless Hamilton videos, whatever. So, it reminded me of that we have to have some kind of backup system. And the backup system is, you know what? I'm a creative and I'm going to get more strategic. I mean, even at one point, like she was complaining, my boyfriend was complaining. I'm like, you guys, we're not fire victims here. Our power's out. We've got a camping stove. We've got a roof over our head. We got food to eat.
Right. Yeah.
Let's try to take the approach of being more creative.
And
let's
also,
get the cards out and play a card game.
And of seeing things as novelty. So this is the interesting thing. When you're doing things fast, the way that you manage to do things fast is because you develop these habits. And habits can be a really dangerous thing when it comes to creativity because you're not thinking. When you're doing something out of habit, you're never thinking about what you're doing. And all of those habits become incredibly hard to break. So when all of a sudden you're faced with the fact that, oh my God, my regular habits of, I read like trashy news, before going to bed. And all of a sudden, oh my God, I can't read my trashy news. I need to read something different or I need to do something different before bed. It's like, this is so terrible.
No, I have that problem.
But it's
because I read in the morning with my coffee. And if I don't have time to read,
it's hard.
Then I feel like my whole day is screwed over.
Right. But I think that that's something that we tell ourselves. Like we have this thing of like, oh, this fell through, therefore my whole day is screwed. And so many people, like I talk to a lot of writers who have writer's block or who don't follow through with writing or with a habit. And that's what habit tells you. Is if your habit wasn't able to be exactly the way it always is today, that the whole thing's jacked up and that you've lost completely. Like you might as well just give up. It's like people who are on a diet and they're like, oh, I ate something. Well, that's screwed. Like now my whole diet's ruined. But that's what habit tells you. So when you slow down and you start isolating the elements, it's much harder to lie to yourself that way, and to be like, oh, these habits are real things. So this guy, Adam Grant, he talks about himself as a precrastinator. He's a psychologist. He's a precrastinator. So he basically says that people who tend to slow down or even procrastinate, they tend to be more creative thinkers. And so I think that that's kind of a great thing when you tell yourself, like, I'm not going to do those dishes right now because I am going to be creative. I think that that's something that we can all do as creatives to try to, don't feel guilty. Don't call it procrastinating, call it precrastinating. It's like,
well, not only that, like every time I do that, I'll tell you right now, straight up, I never regret it. Yeah, no, exactly. The only time I ever regret like doing something like that is if it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Yes. And I was like, shoot, I should have made her lunch. I should have like done, these certain things to prepare for the morning because I'm trying to push it all into 1 hour and that's insane. That's the thing. And I'm not awake. Right. And that's the way that we're using time wrong is that we try to shove everything into this moment that's not actually working for us. Yeah. And that's something where we need to stop guilting about, I need to fit all of this into this amount of time. And that's really dangerous for our creativity. So something to think about, how do we experience time? How do we use our time? All these people who are like, I don't have time to do stuff. When you're actually, it's more of a choice. But I think when you do have to, it's like, I have to make the lunch. For the kids. I have to be at work at 7:15 tomorrow. I think when you go through that process and you do have to pull that off in an hour, you get these like, okay, I was able to do the thing that I wanted to do. Yes. And I did pull that off. I mean, barely by the skin of my teeth.
Right, but you pull it, it gives you strength.
You develop some grit.
You develop the grit, you develop a skill, and then you know that next time you can do that. So that's something where, then some people start to think that they can do it all, which is also not true. That's not doing yourself a favor. Good idea. But, well, on the subject of not being able to do it all, you have to, unless you fly to ballet, we need to say goodbye now. She's going to drive very quickly.
Well, not that quickly, because I drive a Prius and that thing does not go.
It doesn't have much pickup.
Yeah,
that's a ritual. She creates a ritual of slow, peaceful Zen driving, and she can.
Well, they dig around in the in the dressing room for 20 minutes.
So that gives you and so that there's a ritual.
No, there's a little bit of there's a little buffer there.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's good to know what your buffer is, so you don't freak. But it's also sometimes not good to know about the buffer, to fool yourself about the buffer,
right?
So that you
get to where you need to be.
Exactly.
But
so that's it, you guys. I think
we covered
a lot of the slow stuff. Let us know if you guys kind of adhere to a slow kind of lifestyle or slow practice.
Or if there's a slow movement that we didn't mention.
I mean, other than the slow screwing, which we're going to talk about tantric sex and all that stuff some other time.
Yeah. I mean,
we just didn't have enough time for that one. That is a full-on thing.
Yeah, that's a full-on thing.
Yeah,
we got to do our homework on that one.
Our slow gin fizz, I think, was a success.
It was a hit because I am glass completely empty.
Right. It was pretty delicious. I'm just savoring it because it's really. See, I'm trying to slow down and savor. It's pretty delicious. We highly recommend it.
Yeah. Hayman's
of lemon.
Hayman.
And so we highly recommend. We will put the recipe down.
Subscribe
to our YouTube channel and our
Spotify and our
Apple Podcasts
iHeartRadio
and our iHeartRadio. All of those. Do them all, please, because we love the support.
We do.
Listening to our podcast is a great way to slow down and be in the moment when you're in the zone.
Yeah, when you're sitting in the car, you can listen to us babble on about all kinds of
really fascinating shit.
Fascinating.
It's good stuff.
It is.
You're going to learn so much. So, you guys, thank you so much. Cheers again. We'll see you next time.